بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. This will be the last lecture and we're going to start with Zawaj al-Mut'ah. The best translation for Zawaj al-Mut'ah is a temporal marriage and not a pleasure marriage. If you want to go with the literal translation, Mut'ah means pleasure, means excitement, means pleasure. However, the true meaning of this marriage is that it's not pleasure marriage. It is a temporal one. It is a temporal one in which the temporal nature is clear and agreed upon in the contract itself. When people get married, if we can call it marriage, according to Zawaj al-Mut'ah rules and regulations, he initiates his desire to get married with her by saying تزوجتك ليوم تزوجتك ليومين. I'm interested in getting married with you for only 1 day, for 2 days. So actually it is a timed marriage. It's not a permanent one. It's just a temporary or temporal one. تزوجتك حتى نهاية هذا العام. I'm getting married with you until the end of this year. تزوجتك حتى رمضان, until the month of Ramadan. تزوجتك حتى أنتهي من الدكتوراه. I'm getting married with you until I get my PhD, as long as I'm here in the US, and on and on. So the temporal nature actually is well defined and agreed upon from the beginning. So it is a timed and not a permanent marriage. This is what we mean by Zawaj al-Mut'ah. Zawaj al-Mut'ah, or the temporal marriage, and I insist on that, it's not a pleasure marriage anymore, was allowed in Islam in some particular circumstances. Many of the Sahaba, of the eminent companions of the Prophet ﷺ, used to join him going for expedition and jihad and battlefields and on and on. They used to stay away from their homes for weeks and sometimes months. It was hard for them to stay that long period of time while being bachelor or without having their wives with them. For those people, the Prophet ﷺ allowed them long time ago to go with Zawaj al-Mut'ah, and they did go with Zawaj al-Mut'ah. In the battlefield of Khaybar, the Prophet ﷺ prohibited permanently Zawaj al-Mut'ah. So it was allowed in the beginning of Islam, and then it became prohibited. So the permissibility of Zawaj al-Mut'ah had been completely abrogated, erased by the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ when he permanently actually prohibited Zawaj al-Mut'ah. And this prohibition was confirmed one more time during the conquest of Mecca, في فتح مكة المكرمة. Now, some Muslim sects, and in particular the Shi'i sect, they still believe that Zawaj al-Mut'ah is allowed, and according to their resources, that Umar ibn al-Khattab radiyallahu anhu was the one who prohibited Zawaj al-Mut'ah. Because of their stand against Umar ibn al-Khattab radiyallahu anhu, they said that Zawaj al-Mut'ah is still allowed, and it's not prohibited in Islam. With all due respect, this is not true. And according to their resources, if you go to this particular reference, which is one of the main references of Shia, and I in purpose actually kept it in Arabic, it is تهذيب الأحكام للشيخ الطوسي. It's a fiqh and hadith book in the same time. According to this main and authentic reference of the Shia, they mentioned this particular chain of narrators back to the Prophet ﷺ. Listen, they said the following: عن محمد بن يحيى, this is one of the narrators, عن أبي جعفر, عن أبي الجوزة. And as you all know that the Shi'i sects do not take a hadith but from their chain of narrators, like we Ahl Sunnah. We do not accept narrations from the Shi'i sects, except in some particular cases. عن الحسين, so this is the chain of narrators back to the Prophet ﷺ. عن الحسين بن علوان, عن عمرو بن خالد الواسطي, عن زيد Ibn Ali, عن آبائه, عن علي عليهم السلام. So this chain of narrators goes back to Ali radiallahu anhu, the head of the Shi'i sect. According to their resources, Ali radiallahu anhu, believe it or not, is the one who narrated the following. Ali radiallahu anhu said, they say alayhi salam, we do not say, we say radiallahu anhu. So according to their resources, عن علي عليهم السلام, meaning عن آل البيت, حرم رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. According to Ali, that the Prophet ﷺ himself is the one who prohibited in the day of Khaybar nikah al-mut'ah and eating from the meat of domestic donkeys. حرم لحوم الحمر الأهلية ونكاح المتعة. So from their main resources, I mean, we can deny what they believe in. We can say, go to your resources and read in تهذيب الأحكام الشيخ الطوسي that you guys, from your own resources, you admit that Ali, not anybody else, is the one who said that the Prophet ﷺ himself is the one who permanently prohibited Zawaj al-Mut'ah. To make the long story short, what they claim that Umar ibn al-Khattab is the one who prohibited Nikah al-Mut'ah is denied, and the truth is that the Prophet ﷺ is the one who prohibited Nikah al-Mut'ah. Since that time until today, until the day of judgment, Nikah al-Mut'ati is zina. If someone gets married based on a temporal basis from the beginning, then this is a sort of fornication or adultery, and he or she will be held responsible in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, with all due respect to the Shia and their resources, but this is what we believe in. الزواج بنية الطلاق, marriage with the intent of divorce. Now in Zawaj al-Mut'ah, in the temporal marriage, there is a sort of honesty and transparency between the couple. I mean, they agree in advance that the duration of this marriage will be, for this particular, period of time. It's well known and agreed upon. But when it comes to الزواج بنية الطلاق, marriage with the intent of divorce, the matter of fact, it's worse than nikah al-mut'ah, because the guy, or what is called the husband in this case, he suppresses the intention of divorcing his wife. I mean, he made his mind already. He's gonna divorce her in particular time. He made his mind. Yet he did not declare that intention whenever he proposed her for marriage. That's why it is worse and worse and worse and worse than nikah al-mut'ah. It's extremely, extremely, extremely prohibited for a Muslim to get involved in a marriage if he already decided to divorce his wife. You might argue this approach by saying, okay, every one of us as married people, has the intention of divorcing his wife if he could not proceed with her. If he doesn't like her, if there was arguments and dispute, that's true. But you did not insist on divorcing your wife, in advance in particular time. I mean, anyone might divorce his wife if they did not, go along with each other. Then the solution is divorce. But you did not make your mind in advance that in such and such time and date I'm going to divorce my wife. When it comes to الزواج بنية الطلاق, no, it's a different story. I mean, the man had his own mind. He decided already to divorce his wife in a particular time, and he did not declare his intention, his bad intention, to his wife. That's why it is extremely prohibited. Now again, we need to differentiate between حكم العقد ديانة وحكم العقد قضاء. The inward and the out, and the outward status of this marriage. Inwardly, between the Muslim and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he is committing a major sin. Because marriage contract in Islam is a permanent one. You do have the right to divorce, but you cannot limit, the duration of the marriage contract from the beginning. Now, outwardly, in front of the Muslim judge, how could he know? You put yourself in the position of the Muslim judge. A couple of people came and they satisfied all the marriage requirements. There was a wali, shahidain, sigha, you name it. Everything was going smoothly. You cannot say that this is an invalid marriage. You do not know. You do not have an access to their heart. You do not know what this person is hiding. So outwardly speaking, the marriage contract is valid, but inwardly, between the Muslim and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he is committing a major sin. Having said that, all the results and the consequences of marriage in Islam are applied in this case. Like, for example, approving the parentage of the children. All the kids that this lady might have are his kids, unless otherwise proven, because this is a marriage. Number two, sponsoring his wife during their marriage time and during her waiting period, or iddah, after her divorce. He's fully responsible to sponsor his wife. He should spend on her alimony, which is called an-nafaqa in Islam. All the duties and the responsibilities are to be applied in this marriage. The only difference is that diyanatan, inwardly, between him and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he is committing a sin. And she also has the right to inherit from him in case he died before divorcing her, because she is a wife. As I said, diyanatan, that's one of the major sins in Islam. No one would allow his ward marrying anyone if he knows in advance his intention of divorcing, after a while. Okay, now what's the difference between the temporal marriage or zawaj al-mut'ah versus az-zawaj b'niyyat al-talaq? Number one, the termination of the contract is predetermined and agreed upon in the pleasure marriage. It is well known from the beginning. It's not well known for the wife from the beginning in the marriage with the intent of divorce. Number two, no privilege other than I do not call it dowry, actually I call it wage. Okay, no privileges other than the wage is prescribed for the woman in the pleasure marriage. She deserves whatever her temporal husband actually gives her. It's not the case with the marriage with the intent of divorce. Special waiting period for the woman in the pleasure marriage. They do not wait, according to the Shia resources, they do not have the same iddah like we Ahl Sunnah have, because this marriage is a temporal one, it's not a permanent one. The husband cannot extend the marriage after the expiration date. He has to establish another one. He cannot change his mind. If he said, تزوجتك حتى نهاية العام, I'm getting married with you until the end of 2010, for example, he cannot apply for extension. He has to apply another contract, if we can call it a marriage contract. There is something else called zawaj al-misyar. Maybe the translation is funny a little bit. I call it partial marriage. So when you get zawaj al-misyar, you are a part-time husband. You are not a full-time husband. Zawaj al-misyar actually means the traveler's marriage. Al-misyar means al-musafir, the traveler. And actually what happened in the past is that many of the Muslim business people, merchants, they used to travel a lot for a long time, and it was hard for them to stay bachelor without having their wives with them. So they used to stop by different countries and offer, or propose women, for marriage, telling them in advance that usually I stop by China, for example, 1 month per year. So is it okay for you, to be your husband in this month? You're gonna be my wife, but I cannot spend the whole year with you. I do have my first wife in so and so or such and such country. Is it okay for you, to be my wife on a permanent basis, not a temporal one? However, I will be living with you only for 1 month per year. Is it okay with you or not? So this is what we mean by zawaju al-misyar. This is actually the main idea behind the establishment of such a zawaj. Zawaju al-misyar, the marriage of the travelers. It means that in zawaj al-misyar, out of her own mind, the wife might waive her husband from some of her financial or social duties and responsibility. It's not the ideal situation in Islam. This is not the ideal situation. However, people might resort to such a solution in some particular cases. Like, for example, when there's a civil war and many men already died in the war, and the ratio of men and women, there is a big difference in the percentage of men and women in a society. There is a question here: who's going to take care of those women? If we ignore the fact that we have single and bachelor women in the society, then this is actually a serious threatening for the morality of the Muslim society. So there must be a solution. There must be a solution for that. What is the solution? What if the man cannot afford to be a full-time husband for this wife? What if she is financially fine, but she needs a man? She needs a man to live with. To satisfy her, natural and physical and sexual, needs. There is nothing wrong with that. If we, as a Muslim society, if we ignore this problem, people might go through the wrong direction. So again, zawaj al-misyar is not the ideal zawaj. However, it might be a solution in some particular cases and circumstances. Men and women might resort to such a marriage when singleness between women becomes a threatening ethical issue in the Muslim society. I will give you an example. Nowadays in Iraq, The Shia people there, they resort to what? To Zawaj al-Mut'a. And how about the Sunni people? They resort to Zawaj al-Misyar. Many people there, I mean, many men cannot afford, sponsoring new wives in full. And some of those ladies are rich and wealthy enough, but they need actually a man. They need to live with a man, even in a part-time basis. Once a week is fine, once a month, I mean, they have no problem with that. And alhamdulillah, they are righteous and pious enough. They don't want to go through the wrong direction. So what is the solution? You give me a solution. That's why actually Zawaj al-Misyar is allowed, as long as all the requirements and the pillars and the prerequisites of marriage in Islam actually are completely satisfied. There is a wali, there are two witnesses, there is a statement, and whatever she waive from her right, then that's her right. Any basis from the Quran or the Sunnah showing the permissibility of such a marriage? Yes. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was talking about the paying the mahr or the dowry for women, He said Azza wa Jal, فَإِن طِبْنَ لَكُمْ عَنْ شَيْءٍ مِّنْهُ نَفْسًا فَكُلُوهُ هَنِيئًا مَرِيًّا. If your wives out of their own mind waive you from paying parts or even all of their mahr, that's fine. You can just take it. This ayah shows clearly that the wife has the right actually to waive her husband from paying her the mahr. This is one evidence. The second one, authentically narrated that when Sauda bint Zam'a radiallahu anha realized that the Prophet ﷺ might divorce her, out of her own mind, she waived her day with the Prophet ﷺ, and she gave it to whom? To the most beloved, wife, to the heart of the Prophet ﷺ, in order for her to have the privilege of staying as a wife with the Prophet ﷺ. And he did not mind actually staying with Aisha one more day instead of staying with Sauda bint Zam'a radiallahu anhunna ajmain. This actually shows clearly that she has the right to drop or to waive her husband from some of her marital or social duties. When you combine the ayah and the hadith together, you can clearly tell that Zawaj al-Misyar is fine as long as the wife is the one who is waiving her husband from some or all or part of her duties and rights. To make the long story short, actually, Zawaj al-Misyar mubahun ma'a al-karaha. It is permissible, however, it is disliked. But again, people might resort to such a marriage only in some particular circumstance, when there is a real threat for the Muslim society's ethics and morality and chastity. Then we have to go with this solution. If she is okay with her husband staying with her one day per week, 2 weeks, 1 month per year, I mean, that's fine. If she waives him from sponsoring her, that's fine. It's absolutely up to her. Testament and last will. Let me just read the technical definition of testament and last will. It is an act by which a person determines the disposition or the distribution of his or her property after death. كيفية توزيع الميراث. If you live in a Muslim society, okay, and there are no active transaction like credit or debt between you and people, writing a wasiyah, okay, or last will is not a must, because by default, when you pass away, if you have a property, your property will be divided according to what? According to the Islamic inheritance law. You don't have, to write down that I want my estate to be. That's the rule. However, here in the society, it's not the case. The American inheritance law is partially or completely different than the Islamic inheritance law. And as a Muslim, you have to make sure that you apply all the rules of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay, the social, the financial, the ibadat rules, everything has to be applied. So if you have the right to assure that your estate or your wealth will be distributed according to the Islamic law, then you have to indicate clearly in your last will. And it has to be, notarized actually by your attorney or by a notary public, making sure that this document is a legal one and it is binding. You have to indicate clearly that I want my estate to be distributed according to the Islamic law. I do not recommend you specifying your legal heirs from now. Do not say that I have my wife and she is entitled for 1/8. I have 4 kids and 4 daughters, 2 shares for male versus 1 share for female. I have my father, he is entitled for 1/6 of my, I have my, do not do that. Allah forbids. One of those waratha might pass away before you, and this actually will collapse the whole, the whole wasiyah. So keep it as clear as is. Okay, you need to mandate, you need to mention clearly that I want my estate to be distributed according to the Islamic law. And when you pass away, actually people or even the legal system here will find, some jurists or scholars, to determine who are the legal heirs and how to distribute your wealth according to your wasiyah. It is binding. You do have the right, to, obligate, people after your death to distribute your wealth according to the Islamic law. Okay, writing the testament is a highly recommended act mentioned in the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. It becomes an obligatory act. Here is the point. Upon Muslims who have estates in countries ruled by non-Islamic inheritance law. If you pass away, your wife will take 50% of her wealth. While Islamically she is entitled for only 1/8 if you have offspring. She is entitled for 1/4 if your wealth if you do not have any offspring or kids from her or from any other wives if you have any. Now, your testament must indicate the following. Those are a must. Okay, number 1, mandate to the executor and the court that the estate must be distributed according to the Islamic inheritance law. And again, do not specify the legal heirs. Number 2, you have to indicate the following. All the financial rights and debts the person owes others, and that they have to be deducted and paid off before the distribution of the. I'm talking about the active and ongoing transaction. Okay, if you borrowed $5,000 from XYZ brother, write it down. Okay, if he owes you something, write it down. Write everything between you and other people. It has to be fully documented. The expenses of your funeral, like washing the body, shrouding the body, the burial itself, it has to be taken from your estate, not from the wealth of your waratha. If your zakat due date is already due and you did not pay it for some reason, then you have to indicate that I owe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in this case, $5,000, which is my zakah for 1430 after Hijrah, for example. It has to be taken in full from your estate before the distribution of your wealth. Payment for a deputy to perform Hajj. If you were able during your lifetime to perform Hajj, yet for some reason you decided not to go for Hajj, you have to indicate, you have to write down that $6,000 or $7,000 have to be taken, and ask somebody else to perform Hajj on my behalf. Those actually are the mandatory points to be written in your wasiyah. If you already paid your zakah, you are fine. If you already performed your Hajj, you are fine. If there is no ongoing and active transaction between you and other people, like a debit or credit transaction, you did not borrow, you did not lend, then you are fine. The only thing you have to insist on is to write down that I want my estate to be distributed according to the Islamic law, and do not specify who are the legal heirs. Now it could, that's up to you. It could indicate the following. Number 1, assigning up to 1/3 of the estate to be given in charity. You do have the right, to deduct or to donate 1/3. This is called wasiyah. Okay, it is a particular amount or percentage of your wealth to be distributed after your death. I want to donate 1/3 of my estate to Iona, to Amjad, to Islamic American University. That's fine. You cannot exceed 1/3 unless your legal heirs unanimously approved your donation for more than 1/3. It's up to them. Number 2, accommodating some household members who are not entitled to inherit. Like for example, if you have a foster child, like legally adopted child, as we explained, and you want to just be nice with him and donate some money to him after your death, that will be fine, because he cannot inherit from you according to the Islamic law. Like you have a non-Muslim wife, she was nice with you during your lifetime, and you want to donate some money or give her some money, that will be fine. But she cannot inherit from you because she is a non-Muslim wife. No accommodation allowed for any of the heirs. ألا إن الله قد أعطى كل ذي حق حقه ألا لا وصية لوارث. Do not indicate any gift or wasiyah or will for any of the legal heirs, because actually they're going to have their share, you know, by law, by the Islamic law. So do not give them more than what they deserve. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who distributed or defined the share of every single one of your legal heirs. So do not, you know, give them more than what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave to them. If you want a sample of a last will, you can find it in this website. Dr. Mundhir Qahf, Jazahullahu Khairan, did a perfect job. And by the way, I sent a copy from this PowerPoint to Sheikh Mustafa. He might put it in Iona website or just, you know, circulate it to whomever is interested. If you wanna add just this wasiyah and you want it on a Word format copy, you need to contact I think ISNA or Dr. Mundhir Qahf himself and ask for this wasiyah in a Word format, because you wanna change the names and some other points in the wasiyah. This is all what I have regarding contemporary issues for the Muslim family in the US. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما وصلى الله على خير خلقه محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين.
الله أكبر الله أكبر.
The Islamic Organization of North America, IONA, is an organization dedicated to reviving the Quran into the hearts of Muslims while bringing its message to non-Muslims. The obligations of a Muslim as ordained by the Quran and Sunnah can be understood as having 4 levels. 1. A Muslim is required to develop real faith and conviction, iman, in one's heart. 2. A Muslim is required to live a life of complete submission to the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. 3. A Muslim is required to propagate and disseminate the message of Islam to humanity as a whole. 4. A Muslim is required to try his utmost in establishing the just Islamic order. The first and foremost objective of establishing IONA is to assist the Muslims in North America to uphold and implement these obligations, first on themselves, their families, to inform their friends, and then to invite the non-Muslims to Islam. The ultimate goal is to seek Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's pleasure and salvation in the hereafter. For more information about IONA, please visit us at www.ionaonline.org. You may also email us at info@ionaonline.org or call our toll-free number 1-866-779-IONA. Join us. Together we can make a difference.